You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening. Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Quite a bit to tackle, so without further ado, last night, while we were tracking some of the information out of what appears to be a very, very tense couple of hours in Iran, the situation in Minneapolis deteriorated considerably. And it deteriorated for a couple of reasons, to the point where the President of the United States is now considering invoking the Insurrection Act and sending in the military to restore order. And the reason the president was considering this, last night there were a series of protests that turned into riots, and they turned into riots by individuals committing various kinds of crimes. For example, vandalizing, setting fires, as Minnesota is wont to do, capturing several federal vehicles, getting a little bit ahead of myself. Viewer discretion is advised. Listener discretion is advised. If you are on, for example, Allison in Indianapolis on the board, I would definitely have your hand on the dump button, because last night there was an individual who, when Immigration Customs Enforcement attempted to arrest him, a Venezuelan migrant, he responded by trying to swing a shovel at the head of ICE officers. That would be attempted murder. And he was shot. He was shot in the leg. Now, the response to this was, well, just pure unadulterated chaos.
They looks like they're trying to force through to control the scene with a vehicle. They're clearing. There's a person arrested, it seems. I'm not quite sure, on the ground.
So the ICE team responded by firing a shot, shooting the individual in the leg. So he was loaded into an ambulance. There was a photo of the individual, again, a Venezuelan illegal immigrant who was let in during the Biden administration, with a big grin on his face. The crowd responded by chanting all manner of unseemly things that, well, I'm not going to play on the show, because everyone showed up with phone cameras, yelling, and a couple of other pieces of equipment that are probably not the most protest-friendly of pieces of equipment, and started threatening and surrounding the ICE officers. Now, this got rather tense rather quickly, in which the Immigration Customs Enforcement agents responded by firing lots of tear gas, getting out the riot shields, because unlike the situation in which Renee Good tried to commit vehicular manslaughter or vehicular homicide, depending on how you view it, irrelevant, the federal, state, and local police were chased away by the crowds. This was not going to happen another night. So a lot of individuals who showed up at, again, the prompting of people like Governor Tim Walz, like Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, got lungfuls of very spicy air. Now that retching sound, that retching sound that you're hearing is an individual losing his cookies. Yeah, they're screaming, you're cowards, you're traitors, you're $4.99 at Denny's. Who knows? Minneapolis insults, also laced with the friendly four-letter words that you've come to know and love. So a lot of nice upchucking. Individuals who didn't bring something stronger than a 3M KN95 mask. They found, again, the wonderful joys of pepper spray, tear gas, those kinds of things. Did that prevent what would occur next? Hey, this is an individual. We were attempting to make 3 very specific arrests. By the way, before, while the media ran around with the narrative that, this was an innocent teenager who was shot by Immigration Customs Enforcement, shot. And all he was doing was out shoveling the snow or something. In fact, the Associated Press and the NBC coverage didn't even mention that the illegal Venezuelan migrant was carrying a shovel and attempting to assault ICE officers with it. They just made it sound as though ICE was walking down the street singing Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant and just shooting teens in the kneecaps. No, not the case. And by the way, I really shouldn't go any further without showing you a picture of these wonderful teenagers. I apologize, we don't have their high school graduation photos. Here are their mugshots. So for those who are listening on the radio or the podcast side, you're not watching the live stream, which I would recommend. what you can see are three outstanding cancer doctors, astronauts, engineers maybe, or three thuggish looking dudes, one of whom attempted to commit homicide. They were arrested. Now, allow me to introduce you to these fine individuals. The first, on the left, Julio Cesar Sosa Celis, a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela, previously convicted for driving without a license and arrested for 2 counts of giving a false name to a peace officer, subject of the targeted enforcement operation. He was the guy that the ICE authorities were looking to. He was released by Minnesota authorities before ICE could even lodge a detainer.
Oh, there's a big surprise.
So that's the first of the three. Alfredo Alejandro Ayorna, an illegal immigrant from Venezuela, illegally entered the United States in May 2023 under President Joe Biden after he failed to show up for his immigration hearing. Hey, remember how we were constantly told that these are all peaceful, wonderful, friendly people who are just sitting there patiently waiting for their immigration hearing? Did you guys know it turns out a lot of people don't actually show up for their immigration hearings? I know. I too am quite amazed that someone who breaks a law once is more than likely to break more laws. Incredible. Almost like it's a habit. The final dude here who got real close and personal with the camera, his name is Gabriel Alejandro Hernandez Ledesma. He's a criminal illegal alien from, you guessed it, Venezuela, who illegally entered the United States also in May 2023 under the Biden administration. And then the Biden administration marked this particular illegal alien as a non-enforcement priority. Clearly just a pregnant mother seeking a better life, as these individuals often are. So we'll leave that alone for just a second here and share what happened afterward. What's the response to this? These three outstanding, upstanding, no longer standing, excellent illegal immigrants. Well, Minneapolis started doing what it does best, which is violently rioting and looting, which includes, and Allison, again, I'd keep your hand on the dump button. I'm trying very hard here to keep the words from sneaking over, but this might be worth the FCC fine. They looted and captured 2 federal vehicles, stole documents, laptops, and yes, according to video footage from Nick Sordor, who was just doing the Lord's work. You have a moment to pray. Pray for Nick Sordor and his safety. Julio Rosas up there as well. A tow cable was wrapped around a safe box and was then broken into, in which one of the individuals, one of the Minneapolis rioters, stole a rifle and ammunition. I'm sorry, folks. That is literally why this country has an Insurrection Act. The stealing of federal firearms and ammunition is exactly why. Exactly why. Here's the footage from Nick Sordor. Peaceful protesting, right? This is what Tim Walz encouraged everyone. Get out there, and get out your phone cameras and start recording. Show them your the way that you always protest. You always protest this peacefully. So you see the guy going at it with what looks like some kind of ball peen hammer. Then you hear the classic sound of the highest intelligentsia, yo, which is at least what I would imagine, the intense discussion before one buys a vowel on Wheel of Fortune. And also a guy wearing what looks to be one of the masks from The Purge. Another guy who looks like he might be attempting to cosplay as 50 Cent. We'll call him 13.5 cent, maybe, on a good day. So we've got some excellent criminal behavior here. A real run-of-the-mill excellent, again, insurrection, stealing federal property, and again, a firearm and ammunition. Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Stealing an FBI rifle. Excellent stuff. Good. Fun times. Wonderful. So what was the response? Well, because, the president of the United States did get up in front of the country the following morning, I should say. And, I'm sorry, I don't want to skip over. There's also a legal United States citizen who showed up with a firearm and ammunition, who was captured before he was able to use it potentially to murder additional federal law enforcement. But the president of the United States announced, this looks like grounds for the Insurrection Act. Believe it or not, this was not the first official, the president of the United States, to respond to these particular actions in Minnesota yesterday evening. We're going to get to that on the live stream. Radio crew, we have to send you guys to the commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. So Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, whose professional skills include being one of the biggest idiots on planet Earth, and also, although you may argue this is perhaps redundant, the former vice presidential nominee for the Democrat Party. He made the decision after, again, announcing he's not running for re-election because of massive fraud allegations, scandals, his involvement in it in dispute. And then, of course, his excellent handling so far of the riots in Minnesota, in which he announced the immediate guilt of ICE and the wonderful angelic purity of Renee Good before the footage and other information had come out. Tim Walz decided, you know what, we really need a live stream. We need a live stream right here, right now. So Tim Walz gets out in front of the public and encourages them, again, while there is tear gas flowing in the streets as a response to riotous behavior. Walz gets out and says, hey, take you, your kids, your family, and grab your phones and head into the streets in the middle of riots. The governor of Minnesota, ladies and gentlemen.
Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities.
Absolutely you do. Absolutely you do. You have the constitutional right to film police. You do. That has been upheld time and time again. However, you cannot obstruct law enforcement. You cannot assault law enforcement. And believe it or not, you cannot drive into the middle of the street and prevent police from leaving the area.
Hey, you can't park there.
So, just keeping that in mind, we'll let Tim Walz again rally the troops.
So carry your phone with you at all times.
Who's not carrying their phone with them at all times? I'm sorry, that's just a small little gripe I have with that.
And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood,
bake them a fresh batch of chocolate chip cookies. Bring them a fifth of whiskey. Cook them a steak.
take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans.
Atrocities? Atrocities? Now that's a wild, inciting thing to say.
Not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution.
Now, he also referred to ICE in this instance as the Gestapo. He referring to federal law enforcement as the Gestapo. Again, stupid move. He also made some really awful, dumb, really unintelligent claims. But hey, we'll go ahead and let him make these before we get to the most embarrassing thing about the live stream, other than the fact that Tim Walz decided to air one.
The federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota.
Why? Why? He's going to say because there are colored people there. If that's the case, there are a lot more states in the United States where they could deploy if we're just going to start like rounding up people of certain shades. But this isn't Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration. That's not what happened. He's a liar. But alas, we'll let him continue.
Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
Not a thing. Has not happened once. Do you know why it hasn't happened once? We'd have footage of it. Mr. Cell Phone would know that if there were ICE agents knocking on doors and going, "Hello, where's your nearest brown person?" No. This isn't the neighborhood. That's not a real thing. No one's going around knocking on going, "Excuse me, do you know anyone who looks darker than the shade of pale?" Like, no. That's stupid, and he knows it. But after calling ICE the Gestapo and referring to these atrocities and whatever, the most embarrassing thing of all happened to this man. The live stream just started playing all kinds of audio at once. It was really humiliating. They had to take it down.
So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, and I know it's end of this occupation. That we all have to defend. You've done enough. Justice and humanity. Let me say 4 critical things to the people of Minnesota.
Okay, I'm not joking. That isn't an error. That actually went out like that. It's not our error. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. More news to cover.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Little remix of the Cops theme there for you. Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. we're covering some of the incredible decisions by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz that have seeped into some other really bad decisions because the President of the United States is actively considering invoking the Insurrection Act. And he should. There are riots in the streets. The Minnesota Police Patrol, I guess is their state police, they call them as the State Patrol, has refused to protect federal law enforcement or to police their own citizens. You have the Minneapolis Police Department refusing to police their own citizens. Today, we saw additional individuals that continued to harass ICE officials. This afternoon, Fox News aired footage. The riots are getting spicy yet again.
This is a serious clash happening right now.
No. It's not a serious clash happening. That's a peaceful protest. Tim Walz told them yesterday, hey, get out your phones. Go to town. So maybe you shouldn't believe your eyes. Isn't that what Brian Stelter usually says about now?
So John, we're told that the Border Patrol Chief, Dan Bavino, is with them at this time. Let's see if we can pick up the audio. Let's listen.
I don't recommend picking up their audio and listening in on this one. So yeah, Bavino did actually go out with a line of officers and moved forward to arrest those who were actively rioting and, again, violating federal law. Now, by the way, just as a side note here, as the national correspondent for the Daily Signal, I have been on as the guest when the news anchor there's some incredible developing news. And so you're trying to watch that on the little tiny screen that's like right in front of the lens of the camera, trying to see what's going on, and then they pitch it to you. Those are some nerve-wracking moments. Shout out to Scott Jennings, who makes it very easy when he's the host to be the correspondent in those situations. This afternoon also, there are individuals in Minneapolis that we're seeing, this is footage posted by Andy No, who are dumping water outside the federal buildings, hoping that it will freeze. So we're getting out the Kevin McAllister from Home Alone strategies now. And they're so proud of themselves. Dumping a stream of water. Yeah, that'll show them. Yeah, Super Mario Sunshine happening right now outside the federal building in Minneapolis. As though, the Morton Salt Girl can't go out and sprinkle a little something. That's the move. I know what we'll do. We'll dump water all over the tri-state area. Incredible protester logic here. That's some good stuff. Minneapolis High School, which decided, let's take these emotional children and then rile them all up George Floyd style again, and then let them do a little walkout, which took about 3.5 seconds to turn into racial fistfights. Ladies and gentlemen, the proud students in Minneapolis. Yeah, peaceful protesting. All right, Minneapolis, the city of that. Incredible. And by the way, I did mention the arrest outside the federal building. The tear gas has been deployed. Now, as anyone who's been through basic training will tell you, the nice lungful that you receive before you have to rattle off your full name and pay number is not something you'd want to do several times. But Tim Walz has told you, hey, you take out your phone, you get the American flag. Oh, that one's turned upside down. I was told that we weren't allowed to do that. And then you get out there and you yell at federal law enforcement for upholding federal law. Well, Tim Walz has now realized that perhaps, just maybe, he's made a bit of a boo-boo because in response to the president's call that he may invoke the Insurrection Act, Tim Walz releases an appeal. In a statement, his staff is like, no more live streams for you. The Quality Luring Center can't send any more tech support. So he gets out on Twitter, releases this graphic out, this really nice green version of the Minnesota sort of state flag. Says, I'm making a direct appeal to the president. Let's turn the temperature down. Stop this campaign of retribution. This is not who we are. And an appeal to Minnesotans. I know this can be scary. We can. We must speak out loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. We cannot fan the flames of chaos. That's what he wants. So I do enjoy this. First of all, the man who is the arsonist, who has encouraged people to get out in the streets, he says, you're angry, I'm angry, we've got to get out, get into the streets, get your pitchforks. And he's encouraged the crowd out into the streets. He's riled them up. And then he says, now hold on a second here. I was just kind of kidding around there. I wasn't actually suggesting, I didn't actually know. I do appreciate any governor that has to remind their citizens not to violate federal law. I shouldn't say citizens, the residents of their state. So incredible stuff. We will get back to some of the other information on this in a little bit here, because there is one final media report that I've been itching to get to all day just for the show. The Associated Press is more upset than a boy who's just been told he can't play in girls' sports, because they are now covering this incredible footage of ICE blinding a poor, defenseless child. Apparently, according to the media, there was this child that had a megaphone. They're just out there protesting. Probably got told they couldn't sit in the front of the bus or something, according to the media. So they got out there and they had their bullhorn and they were just shouting, protest, protest, or so the story would go. And then this ICE agent walked up. He had a mustache that was a small rectangle. He uttered something in German, or even worse, Republican. And then he shot the kid in the face. He blinded him in both eyes, drew his sword, shot each other. Oh, man, I tell you what. And one fine day in the middle of the night, I've never seen anything quite like it. If you don't ask me, just ask the blind man. He saw it too. Here's the actual footage, by the way. You'll notice that the kid was, again, obstructing police officers and violating the law. And when you FA, you do often FO. So here is the kid in white. He is, again, attempting to intervene in an arrest. He's attempting to intervene, like in a really bad sitcom where someone tries to cut in line, or a jealous man attempts to, get in the way between the lady and the guy that she's dancing with, Mr. Bean in the club. He's trying to break in there, leave enough room for Jesus. That's what the protesters are attempting to do. That becomes rioting. That's violating the law. So an officer gives him the old, boot, scoot, and boogie. He starts to reach for the officer's weapon. And as that particular guy, you notice in the black sweats, seeing this all go on while the guy's being arrested, the camera zooms out and you see a young man in a slightly darker sweatsuit than Nicolas Maduro's runs at the officer, because when a cop is making an arrest, what you clearly should do is sprint at the officer with something in your hand. Cops love that. I'm just incredible logic here. So he runs at the officer, and the officer, seeing this, turns, takes the paintball gun, and fires a well-placed round. Now he grabs the side of his face, and he goes down, down, down. Now the other person who has the mental strength of the tiniest kid who got picked last for the dodgeball team, he does in fact get arrested. And the media said, permanently blinded for life in one eye, in both eyes. He's going to have to become a pirate or something. Terrible, screaming, crying all day. And they did a special emergency interview with the kid. Here you go.
Well, can you tell us about your injuries now and the prognosis? Will you be blind in that eye for life?
I'm sorry. I have no sympathy, number one, because you saw him rush the cops. And he found out. It's not a game, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, radio crew. We're going to have to send you to the commercial. But you should watch the live stream because this interview is worth it. YouTube or rumble.com/Daily Signal. We'll catch you guys in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right. Here you go. One-eyed Wallace over here.
From what I've heard the doctors say and everyone else, yes, I will be blind for life. They said my globe was ruptured. I had my lower.
Okay. We're going to talk about his ruptures and the glands and the fragments. That dude does not appear to be a dude. You may notice by the lack of Adam's apple, the feminine way that the bone structure in the hand is set up and the weird awkward tilt to the side. That may in fact be a guy who either became a girl or vice versa. I've heard several things about this yet. I have no idea. But if this is an individual who is perhaps transgender, they should be used to losing body parts. To be fair, I mean, one might already have some experience.
Her lid was cut up and they had to take skin from my temple to fix it. There's a lot to it. I don't remember all the things that they said. I have fractures in my skull that they can't fix, and I can't sneeze or cough because it's dangerous too.
Yeah, you sneeze or cough, you might actually end up losing the rest of the brain matter that you had before making such a stupid rush at federal law enforcement.
I remember also when I shot, there was pepper in it, and I had pepper down my throat. It made it hard to breathe for a long time.
Normally, I prefer any shots that I take to be with Pimm's #1 from the UK. Really quite delicious. A little bit of cucumber, maybe some Sprite. If it's a shot of seasoning, personally, I recommend the blend. It's an excellent spice, I believe, you get from Kinder. Really good stuff. Great on a steak. Highly recommended. What I don't recommend is charging federal law enforcement. Again, it's not exactly something that you need to be told when you see this particular footage. But there are a lot of people around the country right now that are being lied to by outlets that are suggesting that ICE is walking down the street, taking people out left and right. You have Tim Walz calling them the Gestapo, committing atrocities. You have open incitement of violence. And yes, the President of the United States should move in to restore order. And yes, I do think that at this point there is a pretty decent piece of evidence to be made that Tim Walz may have very much violated the law and incited some kind of insurrection. Now, moving on from that, this is not what's going on all around the country. Attorney General James Altmaier posted this morning a little bit about Jennifer Cruz of Jacksonville. He says, Jennifer disagrees with immigration enforcement and decided to commit a few felonies by getting out of her car and punching a trooper in the face. But unlike Minnesota, we don't put up with this nonsense. Not today, Jennifer. You'll notice she's grinning at the police. She thinks, again, another big, strong, independent lady going to get out there and rough up some law enforcement. So Julio Rosas, friend of the show, he came through for us. And he got us the footage inside the back seat of that police vehicle after she tries to donkey kick one of the troopers and then gets tased right in, what's the medical term for it? Her flabby neck. There's the kick, illegal. Here comes retribution. The nice, wonderful, I love the sound of consequences, don't you? You can see her probably soiling herself. What can't an electric current do? Yeah, don't smack that pretty head of yours, sweetheart. It turns out that law enforcement can actually, do their job and not mess around. Blue states take note. We got to bring the radio crew back. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, boys, girls, and squirrels. Let's take a minute and talk about some of the big federal cases. A lot of federal court decisions today. First of all, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the decision made by an activist judge in the Northeast to release pro-Hamas activist Mahmoud Khalil. You remember, Mahmoud Khalil came over to the United States to go to Columbia University and then didn't really do a lot of learning, but did a lot of protesting and encouraged and incited violence and terrorism and that entire mess. And Marco Rubio came in and said, no, if you're here on a visa, a student visa, a visiting visa, work visa, and then you participate in activities that are against the wishes of the United States, you're not a citizen. You don't have the same free speech rights. Get out. How about no? And so they were going to deport him. And some activist judge, she ran in and said, no, wait, stop. He was only free speeching and, calling for the death of Jews, but it's free speeching. And now a Third Circuit Court of Appeals decision has struck that down. So people are asking, what does that mean? It means that he is currently being picked up. He is going to be picked up. He is going to be deported. He is going to be shipped off to, Liberia or something. Excellent, good times. If you want a good rundown on that, I would recommend the excellent Professor Margaret Cleveland over from The Federalist. Phenomenal stuff. She has a kind of a breakdown on that over on X. Additionally, I have a little bit of the oral argument kind of interim motion. A federal judge, Marguerite Provenzino, appointed by the Joe Biden administration and Chuck Schumer Senate, because, of course, a federal judge has now barred the Department of Agriculture from cutting any funds to help Minnesota administer its SNAP program for a couple of weeks. So right now, as you may recall, Minnesota is suspecting of engaging in about 47 different flavors of fraud. And a judge has now ruled, you can't shut off that tap. You got to keep the money going, even if it's fraudulently going. Now, I personally believe that if a judge makes this kind of decision, and then it is found that there was fraud committed during this particular window in which the judge has not allowed the funding to be shut off, the judge should be held liable for that. Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that. Now, I've heard some other counter arguments. Well, that would create a lot of chaos. You know what else creates a lot of chaos? Continually funding fraud, because God forbid Becky doesn't get to stay on SNAP while we're investigating the kinds of fraud. Her state refused to turn over details onto the federal government because they said, as the Attorney General Keith Ellison made very clear to the feds, well, if we give that to you guys might use that to target illegal immigrants. And I was told that illegal immigrants weren't on SNAP. Incredible. Good times. Last but certainly not least, a final federal judge has ruled temporarily that Immigration Customs Enforcement can continue ICE operations in Minnesota. So according to Hannah Nightingale over at the Post Millennial, Judge Kate Menendez of the U.S. District Court of Minnesota is seeking additional evidence before a ruling on a temporary restraining order. So the judge declined to grant Minnesota this temporary restraining order that said all of ICE needs to leave Minnesota. Because it turns out, as one of the United States, you cannot say no to federal law enforcement coming in and enforcing federal law. Kind of fought a whole civil war all about that. You can't just all of a sudden decide, hey there, we Minnesotans are going to form a nice long Fort Sumter situation. Nope, can't do it. You're going to find yourself in a whole bag of misery. So the federal judge in this case said, well, I'm going to give Trump's administration until like January 19th to respond to this, in Minnesota until the 22nd of January. This is going to be struck down. Now that brings us over to some international news. We're going to start picking up some serious speed. Again, we'll come back to some of the other ICE situation stuff here in just a little bit. Right now, over in the broad ocean view of news, 32 Cubans have now arrived back home in Cuba, the Praetorian Guard of Nicolas Maduro. I do want you to see how they arrived back. It's, well, let's just say that Army Delta Force did something pretty unseemly to these Cuban communist guards. Here you go. Ignore the really awful band music. Communists have really struggled in the music department in the last 50 years. Now, I don't know if you guys know anything about caskets or coffins. Traditionally, they are a little bit larger than shoeboxes. So say what you want about the United States military, but given the reports of certain sonic weaponry used by the military, given the reports of the United States either melting or liquefying or slicing and dicing like it's Fort Wilderness, these particular Cuban communists, maybe they've already been cremated. I have no idea, but they have arrived back home to Cuba in shoeboxes. I also appreciate the funny ways that communists invent to march. I guess knees must be illegal in Cuba, which, given the fact that they're supposed to have such wonderful health care, I find that kind of ironic. Also, China and Russia may be having a pretty serious falling out right now. We're going to have to get back to that later because there are some updates on Iran. Right now, Iran is trying two particular strategies as the Abraham Lincoln sails to the Persian Gulf. Number one, Iran is promising, the Islamic regime that is promising they're going to get out here and assassinate President Trump. Here's Stephen Crowder with this bit of translation.
They aired footage last night of a sign showing President Trump, in Butler, Pennsylvania, and it has this slogan. We translated it. This time it won't miss.
That was aired on Iranian state TV. This time it won't miss. Okay, that's an interesting. Again, I would like to play for you as a reminder. Hey, Mullah regime, these are the Cuban elite super duper ultra special forcesmos. Maybe before you get out there and give yourself, you Allahu Akbar your way into a smaller box than your remains should have to fit in, maybe you don't. The second strategy that Iran is trying is going through the streets and terrifying anyone at all who they think is involved with this particular series of protests and revolts. Now, I have heard a lot of people make the case, make the claim that the president of the United States is backing off, he's chickening out, or he's tacoing here. I'm asking you, respectfully, be a little patient on this one. The reason I'm saying that is that the military craft are on their way over. Now, there are a lot of different arguments as to why last night there wasn't an operation that was carried through. I have seen too many different stories. Stories far too different, too many of those. And from sources that are supposed to be extremely credible in this kind of rumor mill reporting, as credible as a rumor mill report can be, that are suggesting that, Trump said no because it wasn't going to be an effective enough strike, or he was concerned about retaliation. This is the other thing Iran thinks. He's like, no Middle Eastern base of the United States will be safe. Oh, we're spooky. All of our aircraft can barely get off the ground. Okay, I hear you. Patience on that particular matter. So rather than hearing me give you some of those particular updates, new information from Iran, some threats that they're making, possibly some new sanctions that are going down while the USS Abraham Lincoln is on its way over to the Persian Gulf. Joining us, Virginia Allen, the Daily Signal senior news producer, host of Problematic Women. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Tony, this is an ever-evolving, rapidly evolving situation. What we're watching right now is really the if and when of when the U.S. is going to take action, or Israel. And I think that's important to remember that, there's really two players here that could carry out pretty significant action against Iran militarily. The U.S. and Israel or Israel, likely, if one or the other does it, they'll somehow, do it in tandem. Those two nations, of course, strong partnership, talking with one another. What we saw from the U.S. today was new sanctions announced from the State Department, specifically sanctions on Ali Larijani. If I'm saying his last name correctly, he's the Secretary of the Supreme Council for National Security of Iran. The U.S. is specifically sanctioning him. And then they've also announced designation of 18 individuals and entities tied to Iran's what the State Department refers to as shadow banking network that has launched and operated within Iran, proxies, and we're specifically looking at chemical sales and petroleum sales that they've been involved with. So far, of course, this comes after the U.S. had announced those additional 25% tariffs on anyone doing business with Iran. So the U.S. has maintained what I'll call more of a diplomatic policy line, taking those economic actions against specific leaders. So, Tony, like you said, the USS Abraham Lincoln, they appear to be moving from the South China Sea into the waters surrounding Iran in the Middle East. And one thing is for sure, President Trump, he is true to his word. When he says he's going to act, he's going to act. But what that action looks like right now, it's anyone's guess. The timing of that also remains unclear.
So when you look at the situation regarding last June, the situation, of course, being the striking of the Fordo, the Isfahan nuclear facilities. And then when you look at Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela here a couple of weeks ago, you saw a little bit of grandstanding, a little bit of posturing from the administrations in both of these countries saying, we'll swipe down every American jet from the sky, or we're going to, come and get me, Mr. President, being the prior statement. In Iran now, though, the nation, the Islamic regime, is issuing threats to assassinate the president of the United States. Another assassination attempt. The term that they use is, this time the bullet won't miss.
Yeah. And those threats, Tony, should be taken incredibly seriously. And I know our U.S. government is taking those seriously because we know the value set that these individuals have, and it's one of terrorism. That they are willing to go to any lengths in order to achieve not only their political means, but in their view, their religious ends, and that is destruction of the West, destruction of Christian values, destruction of American values. So any sort of threats towards the president from the Iranian regime should be taken incredibly seriously and should be directly responded to from this administration.
I know you've been talking to Ambassador Mike Huckabee to Israel. I know that you've also been keeping an eye on a couple of on-the-ground sources in that particular region. From your expertise in looking at these foreign policy situations and traveling with the Secretary of War in the last couple of months, you've done a lot of extensive foreign policy research, let's say, in these particular series of conflicts. What should we be on the lookout for? Maybe a flag that might pop up that signals either something is about to go down or something is about to drastically change?
Movement, for sure. Movement of weaponry like we're seeing as the U.S. is moving that aircraft carrier into the region. That's big. That can really indicate that the U.S. is preparing for activity, as well as messages to U.S. citizens. We saw this week that the U.S. told any American citizens within Iran to get out. We've seen other countries give that same message. That's pretty clear that some action is very likely in the coming days. I think the hopeful aspect to think about and remember here, and for those watching who are people of faith to be praying for, is something that Ambassador Huckabee said, which is that if the Iranian regime falls, we could actually see a complete realignment in the Middle East. It wasn't that long ago that Iran and Israel actually had cordial relations. We could get back there if we have leadership of Iran that is normal, that actually holds democratic values as critical and as important. So there could be not only a shift for the Iranian people very soon, but quite frankly, for the entire Middle East.
Virginia Allen, our senior news producer, host of Problematic Women, thank you very much for giving us a little bit of insight on this one.
Absolutely, Tony. Thanks for having me.
All right, very briefly, before we swing over to some of the situation in Washington, D.C., I want to give you a quick outline of this very strange situation that appears to be developing between Russia and China. So according to a couple of they're called like Russian Z bloggers, things like that, they are making the suggestion that China is encroaching on the territory of Russia, effectively taking over a large part of the Russian Far East. And this is a key Chinese decision here, collecting taxes from settlers who have moved into this region. According to the details that are currently emerging, Russia has expounded so much in its military and its law enforcement in its far west near Ukraine that it doesn't have the ability to prevent China from doing a little Sino-Soviet split, redux here, and possibly taking over Russian territory. They can't do anything about it. So this is developing. Apparently, Russia's investigating. We got to swing out. We're going to get some Capitol Hill updates. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast with special guest Rob Bluey.
You heard the music, the Bluey music, which means that we either have to bring on a cartoon dog or my boss, Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal, and in the festering sewer of Washington, D.C. Rob, how you doing out there?
I'm hanging in there, Tony. It's been another week here in Washington where, whether it's Congress or the White House, there's never a shortage of things for us to cover and talk about, is there? Right?
Lord knows. Okay, so what a lot of Americans are asking right now, it's all over regular news media, it's all over social media, is whether or not the president of the United States is going to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota, specifically Minneapolis. Tell us what you know.
Yeah. Well, so just to set the context here, I mean, obviously let's go all the way back to the presidential campaign where President Trump clearly laid out what his objectives were when it came to the illegal immigration crisis that our country faced. He was clear with the American people that he would carry out the largest deportation effort in our country's history. You have to go all the way back to the 1950s in the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration when something of this scale was done. And obviously, there were a lot fewer illegal aliens in the country at that time than there are today. So I give you that context, and your listeners and viewers know this, but it seems that a large segment of the American population, and I speak specifically about Democrat mayors and governors, were not paying attention when Donald Trump made these promises and said this is what he was going to do. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that ICE and other law enforcement were going to ramp up their efforts in cities where this is known to be a problem. And that's exactly what you saw happen in Minneapolis. And of course, the tragedy that ensued when a woman, a 37-year-old woman, decided to ram her car into an ICE officer, and in self-defense, he fired and killed her. And so you have a situation now where protests have escalated in that city. They seem to be getting out of hand. And the president does have this tool at his disposal, as you just indicated, called the Insurrection Act. And you've had people like the mayor and the governor there say, calm down, because we really don't want the president to do this. But obviously the rhetoric that they've had over the course of the past year has spun up people into this frenzy, and we're seeing the consequences.
It's a very strange game of chicken, I think, just to be rather frank here, that a lot of the country is watching whether or not the administration is going to pull out ICE and say mission accomplished, or whether or not we're going to see Minnesota, play chicken and finally, clear away some of these rioters. When you see video, again, we've already showed from Nick Sordor, sent it over to me last night, the box that was ripped out of a federal vehicle using a tow cable, and then a rifle broken out of it, ammunition. It is what some might suggest the Insurrection Act was created for. But I want to move past that. So obviously, there's a lot of other stuff to discuss today. I know the president has announced a huge healthcare initiative. I don't think some of us had this on our radar. January, obviously, we're getting ready for some more continuing resolution shenanigans. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, I think the president is obviously trying to balance a number of issues. I mean, as you talk about on a nightly basis, what we're watching across the globe in terms of the threats and challenges that he's oftentimes dealing with. And then you have the issues domestically. The Democrats want to make the 2026 midterm elections about health care and affordability. That's precisely why they decided to shut down the government last year. It was over the issue of Obamacare subsidies, an artificial crisis that was of their own making. They're the ones that set the deadline. Let's not forget that. We should constantly remind people. And of course, Obamacare wouldn't be in this predicament if it was good policy. It's not. And so the president has to balance not only the realities of things that are going on, including things like the ICE protests and making sure that he continues on his efforts when it comes to illegal immigration, but he also has to deal with the situation that he's been handed, and that comes in the form of affordability and healthcare. And those two things are linked because Obamacare has made healthcare unaffordable. And Republicans had an opportunity during President Trump's first term, at the very beginning of that first term, they were very close to making some changes to the healthcare system. And it came down to one senator, John McCain, who famously used the thumbs down on the Senate floor to tank that bill. Of course, Republicans really haven't returned to that issue since then. And Donald Trump has now put forward a plan that would essentially put the responsibility on the patient, you and me, to manage more of the healthcare dollars that we have. And that would come in the form of healthcare savings accounts. It would come in the form of price transparency, telling the American people how much procedures cost actually before they embark on that. That would be a drastic change from the system we have now. I think it's going to be a big climb. Republicans traditionally have not done well when it comes to healthcare, but I think what the president is telling them, don't screw this up. Otherwise, you might be out of a job come November.
And not only that, but again, the latter 2 years of this administration would basically screech to a halt because of the control of Congress shifts. Well, then everything is mired in the muck of constant investigations and then, impeachment hearings, et cetera. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So this is where I think the less showboaty of the administration officials come out to shine. When you look at the individuals like Sean Duffy, when you look at Chris Wright, when you look at some of the individuals who are pursuing this deregulation policy to take the chains off of the American economy, whether we're talking about energy, whether we're talking about the medical system, whether we're talking about all of these different avenues that have crippled the American economy throughout the Biden administration, some all the way back to the Obama administration. Do you think we might see a situation in which some of this kind of behind the scenes administrative action suddenly takes center stage and kind of derails all of this, or is it going to stay in the background?
I do. Well, let me mention a few things. Number one, I would say first thing they have to do is make sure that they pass the spending bills by January 30th, because we don't want to. I think the last thing that President Trump wants is to find himself in another situation where he is having to negotiate with Democrats and recalcitrant Republicans and, try to get the government. That's just not good for the U.S. economy. Or, as you just indicated, if the government shut down, you're not going to be able to get those rules through the system. And so they have a number of spending bills they need to get done. It seems, after the House had the action yesterday, that they're on the path to doing that. The Senate is teed up in the Senate. So it's looking increasingly likely that they will get the bills done before the January 30th deadline. If that happens, then yes, absolutely. Now is the time to get all of those rules done. You'll remember that this president has given his administration an order that they're not to create new rules or regulations without taking other rules off the books first. He was highly successful in getting that done in his first term. He should continue to do that. Those are the burdens that come on to small business owners and big business. And I think that will do exactly what you're indicating and juice the economy. And then the final thing I'll say is, if you go back to last July, when he signed the One Big Beautiful Bill, or as he now calls it, the Working Families Tax Cut, Americans in the first and second quarter of this year are going to start to see bigger tax refunds from the result and the policy that they had. So I think all of those things bode well, and hopefully that is enough of a message to the American people that they want to retain the president's policies as opposed to shift to what the Democrats are offering, which, as you indicated, is not going to be nothing but investigations, impeachment, and probably Zohran Mamdani style policies that are not going to be good for anybody.
That's what I'm keeping an eye on from February through April of this year, is if we actually see a pretty decent Q1 into Q2 that comes from a lot of these deregulatory practices that really boosted things in Q4, then we could see something that becomes a momentum all of its own. And this is Trump's secret, right? This is kind of the hidden sauce in the recipe, where if the president of the United States has so many background policies that are effective, that in the first administration, when he gets out and he sends a tweet right onto beautiful social media, it doesn't matter, because people are feeling the effects who aren't online 24/7, that they're fine. We could see a kind of momentum into the midterms that we didn't see in the first administration.
Yes. And this is where, obviously not being a pollster, but looking at some of the numbers. I mean, I think if you're Republicans right now, you have to be nervous. Historically,
that's a good thing to be in midterms. Yeah, I stand on that. I'm sorry. Overconfidence sucks when it goes into elections.
Well, remember the big red wave that never materialized?
Absolutely.
So I think they need to be mindful that the American people, in some cases, they're in a change mentality. We've had election after election where they simply vote out the incumbents and they bring in and then they get quickly frustrated with the new team, and then they bring back the old team. And so it just seems to be the mindset that
fantasy football on steroids.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then I think the other thing that the president needs to do is every single day of the week, he needs to be touting some of the economic success and really maybe express some compassion or I hesitate to use the word empathy, but I think the American people want to know that their president cares about the bottom line and their personal finances. And that's something that I think you've started to see increasingly happen post last November's election, when Republicans got their clock clean in a number of states because they weren't necessarily talking about the issues that mattered.
Again, the reason that we bring up these particular things, just in a matter of transparency for you over at home. Rob Bluey, my boss over at the Daily Signal, he's in D.C. And so there are a few questions that your neighborhood sarcastic Hoosier, tends to have that can only be answered by someone who has to stare at the really beautiful neoclassical architecture and the ugly cement architecture from the Carter years. So
Yes.
Rob Bluey, always a pleasure. Thanks for breaking it down for us.
Well, thank you, Tony. And keep that sense of humor because we need it. Those of us who are serious in Washington appreciate what you do every day.
Oh, thanks. Equally parts flattering and terrifying. We'll be back in just a second. Don't y'all go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, if you're a big stinky nerd, perhaps on the media side today, you saw a couple of things. And I don't just mean like big stinky nerd, meaning like Trekkies, although there is some really depressing Star Trek nonsense. Oh yeah, didn't I tell you? Bonus Tonus tonight is going to be freaking phenomenal. Stay with us. Trust me, this stuff is gold. First of all, the President of the United States today cracked a joke. So as the joke goes, he said, the president expressed frustration that his Republican Party could lose control of the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate in this year's midterm elections, citing historical trends that have seen the party in power lose seats in the second year of a presidency. It's some deep psychological thing, but when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms, Trump said. He boasted that he had accomplished so much that, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. And the media took this and lost their ever-loving mind. Essentially, here's the new narrative. Before you see this on the yard signs and like the awkward billboards and like the people writing it on, proudly on windows and on their coffee cups, here is the Lincoln Project's assessment. All right, here we go. This has been the plan all along. Step number 1, foment violence and chaos in the streets of Minnesota. Step number 2, implement the Insurrection Act. Step number 3, declare martial law. My friend Marshall, he's going to declare him the law. Step number 4, suspend elections. And there are, who I considered up until today, a couple of the younger, they advertise themselves as more moderate Democrats. And of course, in the end, there's no such thing, who have decided to take this and run right into the middle of the road. They've decided to take this and say, Trump's ending democracy. Oh, no, all this nonsense. Carolyn Levitt, of course, the vast majority of the country knows that he's not actually going to cancel the midterm elections. Don't be stupid. And that was essentially the message from Carolyn Levitt, White House press secretary today.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. First, a follow-up on one of my colleagues who asked you about the president's interview with Reuters. You said that he was joking about canceling the election.
You said he was joking. We all know that Hitler doesn't joke. We all know it. Also, Hitler drank water and Trump drank water. Do you have a comment, Carolyn?
But Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy.
They fought and died. I lost my hair. But anyway.
Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Are you saying that he's laughing about how he's not so popular? He's like, well, you know what? I thought, man, I might get my butt kicked in a midterm election because of the president. So maybe no elections. It's like, you don't know how Trump jokes now. Like, Trump has joked this exact way and consistently joked. We've seen it before. Are you serious? Does he find it funny that there are people who died in World War II? Does he think that's funny, Carolyn?
Were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
Hey, are you retarded? Because you look a little like Tim Walz. Incredible stuff. There really is no need to take these people seriously. By the way, this is the question that actually got me not in trouble, but into a very fun argument at the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. They're 2 of their leading anchor people were at the front of the room, and they were talking about how, they have it really tough in the media. And so I raised my hand and I said, hey, Tony Kinnett from the Daily Signal. I can't help but notice that when you guys call a press conference, you say you really don't like how CNN or ABC or MSNBC and MS Now, whatever, you don't like it how they cover you. So my question is this: why do you keep inviting them? And by the way, here would be my question: why am I expected to take this goober seriously? There are people that died, Carolyn. Did you know there are children that are hungry? Every 60 seconds in Africa, a minute passes, Carolyn. I love it. Scott Jennings made fun of this in the most appropriate way on CNN. I thought I'd share it with y'all.
Scott, are there going to be midterm elections?
Yes, I'll bet everybody here a steak dinner. We'll have a midterm election.
Oh, great.
I'll bet you all a steak dinner. And if we have an election, you can all buy me one.
We'll probably be here.
Of course, this is the new bloodbath, right? I mean, we're going to take this out of context, and Caroline explained it perfectly. I mean, what he's saying is, my gosh, we're doing so well, we shouldn't even have to, have a question about this. Of course, we're going to have elections, and we'll see what the American people want to do. I'm not convinced that the outcome's already predetermined.
Correct. Scott Jennings, friend of the show, right on the money there. So the pearl clutching is really at maximum level. And by that, I mean, they are now making celebrity star-studded videos about the deep necessity for boys to play in girls' sports. Now, one of the people in this video, one of the celebrities, is Megan Rapinoe, whatever, the pink-haired soccer player. Now, that's going to be funny for a couple of reasons, but we'll let them do the little video here.
When you're young, you believe that you can do anything, and then the world tries to set limits for you.
No, kids who believe they can fly when they're children. That's not the world. Gravity is not the world setting limits for you, to be mean. There are some things that are realities. There are some things that are realities. As a lot of people, make the joke they're far too short to ever play in the NBA. It's not the job of the United States to give you stilts.
What's allowed, what's normal, who you're supposed to be. But on the field, the track, the court, here, you get to be exactly who you are.
Because at our core, we're still the kids who just want to play.
The go big game changers.
The living, breathing fabric of this country.
Supporting trans youth isn't just about sports.
It's about freedom.
On and off the field. It's more than a game.
Okay, yeah, that's great. It is more than a game, by the way. You ask the students in Loudoun County, Virginia, how they feel about it due to the numerous sexual assaults that occurred by boys to girls in locker rooms. But I do think that there's a little interesting little bit of irony here. So Megan Rapinoe, whatever, the soccer star who's advocating for boys in women's sports, it is a little ironic that she would be one of the champions of this because, as Carly Lloyd confirmed, the U.S. women's soccer team, of which Megan is a part, lost to an under 15-year-old boys soccer team. The U.S. women's soccer team faced off against a junior varsity high school boys soccer team and got spanked, got absolutely wrecked. And you're going to tell me, oh, it's all the same. I'm really just athletic. Oh, it's all the same. That's why you need to give us lots more money. Okay. Speaking of DEI, I told you the nerds were going to be upset. Now I'm more of a Star Wars guy, and to be clear, I am a very, very, very big nerd. I have a lightsaber right over there. But for the Star Trekkies, it is now canon in the Star Trek universe, whatever, for all of the cadets at Starfleet, Star Academy, whatever, in order to join, and join the Star Trek crew. You have to go through lesbian diversity, equity, inclusion training. It's on Star Trek now. You thought Stacey Abrams was the worst thing that could happen to Star Trek. Absolutely not.
The name of this cadet. Being a cadet in Starfleet Academy means being open to the people around you. And that connection is where time and space really live.
I love that. So Professor Lesbinims, she gets really, said, being in the military, being in Starfleet as a cadet is all about openness and togetherness. Can you imagine? You're like, hey, down in gunnery, I need you to fire a laser at that Klingon ship. And they're like, have you thought about being open and together, Captain?
Yeah, you're a genius who owns all the suffering. I only know two things, kid. Number one, old age and treachery always triumph over youth and a smart mouth. Oscar Wilde. Love that dude. Fun fact, when he died, they had to put glass over his tombstone because people kept trying to make out with it. Number two,
the women's U.S. soccer team lost to a 15-year-old boys soccer team. No, sorry.
Smart mouth isn't worth a damn.
Oh, she's so strong. Yeah, you go, girl. All of the weird old lesbians always have that exact same haircut. How do I know? My old middle school band teacher, who acted exactly like this and is known by many far and wide as being a very unpleasant person, looks and acts exactly like this. Every single one, they all act the same. I'm very unsatisfied, so I'm here to let you all know that I'm insufferable. Hope you didn't like Star Trek too much. God, I think I would jump out of the building no matter what kind of jetpack I was wearing. So excellent stuff. By the way, back to some of the ICE situations. I did want to share another thing with you before we got off of that particular subject matter. We weren't able to just because of the FCC clock and keeping in line with the radio and the TV side of things. There are roving bands of Karens, because of course, that are patrolling Minneapolis and the surrounding areas. And they are harassing random individuals who are just trying to rent vehicles to move regular stuff. They are making people, like faking to be law enforcement, which I thought was one of the things they were accusing ICE of doing. They are forcing, like Goldmer in Andy Griffith's show, citizens arrest. They are trying to force people to show the cargo of their vehicles before they rent SUVs. It's wild. Look at this.
Here you go. There, like I said, I don't have to do this. I'm happy to do this. That's all.
So it is raining. This dude is showing the Karen squad, you know, the menopause patrol, everything that is in his vehicle because they think that he's ICE, because he is a man renting an SUV. That's the classic signs. Like signs that your child might be into something. There's a book out there that says sign that your husband might be into ICE. And it's, is he wearing a collared shirt and renting SUVs? He might be an ICE fanatic.
We just got to stop this.
So he's got a lot of camera equipment. I think we can say this isn't ICE.
Yes, the Karen gets out there and says, so he's got a lot of camera equipment. I'm detecting. I got out. So, see, in the smut detective novel I'm reading, it says that camera equipment means he's probably not ICE.
Yeah, I'm not. I tried to tell the first lady, nobody believes me. That's all I can do is tell you. I already listen, first of all, I don't have to do any of that, but I'm kind. I respect what you are doing.
There it is. They're like, he's like, I already told you, I'm not. Well, you look so male, and SUV renting. And so his defense, I'm kind. Like he starts reading off the yard sign. This poor man, he just wants to leave. He's like, I have a lot of camera equipment. I need to move it. I needed an SUV to carry the camera equipment. Maybe he's a wedding photographer. Maybe the dude's filming claymations. It's been a long time since we've had a sequel to The Heat Miser. I don't know. Leave the dude alone.
Yeah, no. I really appreciate what you guys.
So then the fat chubby guy who's desperately trying to sleep with the older lady detective, he walks up and he's like, I can't help but notice that you didn't cite the 12 familial Star Trek cadet themes of justice.
I just don't understand my job and I don't know how to do it.
Were you here yesterday?
Yeah.
Now they're looking at it, they're like this history. Were you here yesterday? I'm looking here, and on the anniversary of my 8th divorce, I noticed you were here yesterday.
He was here yesterday. I can testify that. I didn't recognize him.
No, I appreciate your help. Thank you.
I'm not here to help you.
No,
I think the fact that you're in a vehicle like this is just
I get it. With all due.
Oh, incredible. So the really sad lady who's trying to convince everyone that she's not got graying hair. Nothing wrong with graying hair, by the way. My hair's graying right now. But the slick back ponytail failed art teacher, she comes out and says, he was here yesterday. And he's like, hey, thank you so much. I mean, she's like, I can testify he was here yesterday. I don't know. He says, hey, thank you so much. She goes, I'm not doing it for you. The fact that you're renting an SUV, you bastard. An SUV. Do you know what the letters SUV stand for? Sex abusive, underwear grabbing, and vehicularizing illegals. How do you live with yourself?
Respect everybody. I can get help away from
Well, you can. You go rent something else.
Well,
I mean, if you're part of the media.
That's not how.
You go rent something else? He's hauling camera equipment.
This is my business.
I know. This is my business. So anyhow, I hope you guys understand.
Okay.
Not here to
He
cause any
was here
problem.
with a video camera yesterday. I did see another vehicle with them. But
Yeah, he showed
I did see him with the camera.
Press badge when folks were talking to you on the side? No. Okay. I told him I was with the media. Okay. And when people get irate with me, I have no choice to just roll the window. I think you got to understand that people were kidnapped.
Oh, you need to understand the lynch mobs. See, they're saying, hey, you're a black man. I mean, we got a tree around here. You know, I mean, this random girl said you did something. So quick, John, get the rope in the tree. What is wrong with people? Hey, Tim Walz, he said, hey, anytime you get out there and you think you see ICE anywhere, you get out there, you get your phone and you hit record. You'll be a menace to society. I'm not running for election because of all the fraud I'm likely part of. But you get out there. I'm not going to get out there because, you know, when I get out there, I film videos of the Under Armour long underwear I'm wearing. But you get out there and you harass people trying to... This is the man who tries to simultaneously convince everyone that Minnesota is like the greatest place in the world to raise a family. Dude, I wouldn't raise a geranium in Minnesota, much less a family. Minnesota looks like the most insufferable state outside of Connecticut. It's absolutely awful. So, well, yeah, Insurrection Act. So all of those people, just because they're insufferable, round them up, Gitmo. I'm sorry. Don't care. Get rid of them. Anyone who acts like that just thinks, well, I've noticed you were here yesterday and the day before and the other. If your personality is that insufferable, you should have a special slot reserved for you at Gitmo. Just for you. I'll help you pack. Now, last little bit here. Some of those ICE officials out there, they are not taking some of this sitting down, which I do appreciate. One of the individuals, I believe, from ICE, is just roasting other, I guess, people coming up to, give him grief. I want to make sure that we don't play the particular version of this that's really creepy. I mean, you have ladies calling for to make all ICE men widowers, or like ladies that are husbands of ICE widows. Here's this winner.
I saw this image left in the comments of another video, and as the ex-wife of a maggot, and I consider ICE to be maggots on fucking steroids, I'd just like to state that this would be doing them a favor.
I can't possibly fathom why you would be someone's ex-wife. I can't. I'm trying to figure out why no one wants to be with you, and I think we've discovered the secret. Here's the ICE officer kind of clapping back to the protesters.
What is your name? Sir, tell me your name. This is unacceptable. Okay. Absolutely unacceptable.
There it is. Same one. It's the same crowd. The middle-aged liberal women out there. It's unacceptable.
You should all be ashamed of yourselves. This is not appropriate. This is my country. I'm here legally.
Great. Well, we're not here for you.
These people, you never ask for proof. You are a bad, evil person. You need to be expunged. You need to go to another country.
Expunged?
You need to know what it looks like. Instead, you're pulling over innocent people, not asking for any ID and just hauling them off.
This is what I imagine happens to the manager of a Joann Fabrics who drinks an entire bottle of Jack Daniels. That's just the vibe that I'm getting here.
You all should be ashamed. How do you go home to children, to friends, to family? Do you tell them what you do for a living?
Yeah, and we're very supportive of them. That's awesome. And my favorite thing to do is watch ICE arrest videos online. It's fantastic. In fact, I want you to know that all of my conservative friends, we in fact do share videos of ICE arresting individuals, because I want to make this clear. It is freaking hilarious. But more hilarious to me than watching the child predator or the arsonist or the drug trafficker get arrested and shipped back to their country is watching the middle-aged women think that the law doesn't apply to them, and they waddle their saggy arms up to the ICE officer, and then they get put on their fat butt. It's funny. It's hilarious. More, please.
That you arrest people without cause? That you just pick them up, put them in a truck? Is that what you do?
you for calling. Thank you for calling the ICE hotline for us.
Are you?
Thank you for calling the ICE hotline. Thank you for calling the ICE hotline for us, he says. Stellar.
Proud of this? Are you proud? You are an idiot. You do not deserve to walk the face of this earth. None of you. None of you. You are fools. I didn't get a name. I didn't get a name.
I love it. I didn't get a name. Yes. Well, after all of that, fine detective work. Fine detective work. As someone who was in the crowd of the Antifa young pro-Palestine people in Chicago, in the Democratic National Convention of 24, I was able to get lots of names. Step number one of being an undercover investigator, being a journalist, is acting like those around you. Number one. Number two, just being a normal person and asking them, having a normal conversation. Hey, how's it going? And then you get to names. You introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Tony, devilishly handsome. And you are? Screaming at people that you don't deserve to walk the face of the earth. Not the best icebreaker. Just saying. Probably, maybe this is the person that the corporate meet and greets where we go around the room and you say your name and then a fun fact about yourself. Maybe this is who that was invented for. Maybe they just need the practice. They're not good at introducing themselves to people.
Out of that car. And they're, yeah.
I love it. I do. It's so much fun. There are a lot of people who may be rather glum. You may be like looking at the poll numbers going, oh no, it's terrible. No, this is funny. It is. And when the Insurrection Act is invoked, or when either Walz or his crew finally, let off the gas and ICE, whether it's 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 agents swing on through, I will absolutely enjoy watching every single of these people on the left who obstruct federal law enforcement get rounded right on their derrieres. It's going to be fantastic. So if you have an ICE member in your life by mistake, just good advice for life. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Really quick, before we scoot off, I do want to say a huge thank you. We did get a very nice, very kind super chat from T. James, 2086, a $2 super chat. Again, you guys don't have to do anything like that. We appreciate you. You guys are excellent. We'll see you real soon. Take care.